country, we gain nothing by this kind of politics. Ladies and gentlemen, it is important to note that the rate of 6.5% depreciation we have witnessed year to date in 2025 is not informed by any sustainable strategies by the current government. The current disparity between inflation and the rate of depreciation is evidence of heavy central bank intervention on the market. The Mahama administration and the central bank can do this, but this is happening only because the previous administration left a gross international reserve of $8.9 billion by the end of 2024. This is being used to shore up the value of the cedi. The president deliberately, as you know, avoided this in his statement. Fellow Ghanaians, the true state of the nation is that exchange rate stability, which we saw before the end of 2024 and which has continued into the first quarter of this year, is not by any magic from the Mahama government. It is because the Akufo-Addo government left significant levels of international reserves for them. In addressing the issue of buffers created to support expenditure and maturing debt obligations, the president focused on the sinking fund as if it is the only source of buffers. The sinking fund is just one of our buffers. At each point in time, the government designates some accounts for buffer and for purposes of special payments. In the last 8 years, such accounts included the sinking fund, the Eurobond proceeds account, the IMF proceeds account, and the Treasury Main 2 account. For example, the IMF third review disbursement of $360 million was done on 2nd December 2024, but this was kept as buffer, part of which was used to pay coupons amounting to $346 million to Eurobond holders on 3rd January 2025. This was not done from the sinking fund. Similarly, in October 2024, we paid $520 million to our Eurobond holders for the first coupons and other fees. But again, this was not done from the sinking fund. How could we have done these payments if we didn't have buffers? Yet the president thinks that the only buffers we have is the sinking fund. The NPP also left significant amount of buffers, more than 5 billion Ghana cedis from the 2024 revenue collected by GRA in the Treasury Main 2 accounts, which the new government has used. Yet the president failed to talk about it and focus only on the sinking fund. On the financial sector, ladies and gentlemen, the president again played to the gallery by stating that, and I quote, "The financial sector continues to struggle despite the previous government reportedly spending 29.9 billion Ghana cedis on the financial sector clean-up exercise to date." Reportedly spending 29.9 billion Ghana cedis on the financial sector clean-up. Typical of NDC's usual sweeping statements, he made this conclusion.
Can you please put that up, please? Put this one, please. Not completely. Can't control it. Just please, let's go back.
On the financial sector, typical of NDC's usual sweeping statements, he made this. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. On the financial sector, ladies and gentlemen, the president again played to the gallery by stating that, and I quote, "The financial sector continues to struggle despite the previous government reportedly spending 29.9 billion Ghana cedis on the financial sector cleanup exercise to date," unquote. Typical of NDC's usual sweeping statements, he made this conclusion without providing any basis. Whilst we sympathize with those who were adversely affected by the financial sector cleanup, the exercise was well intended to protect the banking industry from collapse, protect depositors' money, and revive the economy. The evidence today shows that, notwithstanding the DDEP effects on the local banks, the financial sector has become stronger, with banks posting impressive financial ratios and returning to profitability. This is the true state of the financial sector in Ghana. The Bank of Ghana's recent publication, Summary of Economic and Financial Data, January 2025, provides very rich information about the performance of the financial sector. The annual growth in total assets of the financial sector as at the end of 2024 was 33.8%, and total deposits by 28.8%. Similarly, in terms of liquidity, core liquid assets to short-term liabilities grew by 46.3%. The capital market shows similar strong performance, with the GSE All-Share Index year-to-date growing by 56.2% by December 2024. The earnings and profitability ratios also show that return on asset before tax recorded an annual growth of 5.4% in December 2023 and 5% in December 2024, whilst return on equity after tax grew at 34.2% in December 2023 and 30.8% in December 2024. It is no secret that the strength of an economy is also determined by the strength of its financial sector. Given the record of performance of our financial sector under the NPP administration, is this correct, ladies and gentlemen, for such an economy to be described as badly managed? Ladies and gentlemen, you can now understand that all the main components of our economy are in good shape. The real sector, as demonstrated in real GDP growth, the external sector, showing impressive external positions through trade and current account surpluses, and the performance of the financial sector, posting impressive financial ratios. Therefore, we need to ask President Mahama, how did he come by the conclusion that the economy was mismanaged? Ladies and gentlemen, the president tried to scare the Ghanaian people about the country's debt service obligations for the next 4 years, which according to him will amount to 280 billion Ghana cedis, comprising 150 billion Ghana cedis for domestic and 130 billion Ghana cedis in external debt servicing. Government, at every time, provides for debt servicing obligations, and the president is aware of this. We expect the president to mobilize the funds and stop complaining, such as what every government in Ghana has done to service our debts. The NPP did that when he left us with debts in 2017. Our debt management strategy has ensured that Ghana's debt levels have decreased substantially, and so are our debt service, taking a significant burden off the government. We have ensured that through strong negotiations, the servicing of Ghana's debts owed to our official bilateral creditors, $5.4 billion, has been rescheduled until after 2026. The NDC government didn't negotiate this. The agreement we reached with the Official Creditors Committee for Ghana entails a rescheduling of all debt service, principal and interest, falling due between 20th December 2023 to 31st December 2026. As a result, no debt service under bilateral debt will be paid until after 2026. I want to repeat that. No debt service under bilateral debt will be paid until after 2026, including the debt we didn't pay in 2023, since we declared the debt standstill. This was negotiated by the NPP government, that we will not pay our debts to our official creditors until after 2026. Ladies and gentlemen, the rescheduled amounts to be paid are expected to be repaid in 16 years and in 17 years respectively after their contractual due date. We'll start servicing after 2026. But the amount we are rescheduling between 2023 and 2026, we won't pay them at all until after 16 and 17 years when their contractual due date have expired. This is the work the NPP government has done. Delays in payments will be compensated for by interest accruing on the amounts at concessional rates ranging between 1% and 3%. This offer applies to all our official bilateral creditors and ECA-backed facilities signed and disbursed before end 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, this provides briefing space for the new government. The NPP is not in government to benefit from this. It's briefing space, significant briefing space for the new government. Yet President Mahama will not talk about that. In addition, the debt service relief from this negotiation stands at $2.8 billion, which the government of Ghana would have paid, but which now stands as savings to the country. Again, President Mahama will not talk about this. Even with such a great work done by the NPP government, the president could not acknowledge it. Rather, he sought to take an earned credit for it when he stated in his address, and I quote, "We signed a memorandum of understanding with our official creditor committee to formalize the debt treatment agreed upon with official creditors. This marks a crucial step towards Ghana's restoration of long-term sustainability. The agreement would enable financial resources to support and strengthen economic recovery," unquote. I say to Mr. President, you did not sign any MOU. What Ghana needed to do to reach an agreement was to express consent to the terms of the MOU in writing. This was done on 12 January 2024 to reach an agreement in principle, later firmed up after further negotiations in June 2024, which paved way for the second successful review of the IMF program implementation. The OCC members, the participating creditor countries, 25 of them, were those required to sign up individually, which all of them did, except 3 countries that delayed because of their long internal processes. These countries finally signed up in January 2025, and that is why President Mahama wants to take credit for this. Mr. President, you played no role in this. Apart from the rescheduling of debt service and savings from the negotiations with our official bilateral creditors, we also achieved debt cancellation, outright debt cancellation of almost $4 billion United States dollars. An additional debt service relief of $4.7 billion United States dollars through our negotiations with Ghana's Eurobond holders. This has reduced our debt levels, our public debt levels, from 78% of GDP to 72% of GDP. In fact, from September to October 2024 alone, our debt levels reduced by 68 billion Ghana cedis. It is instructive to note, therefore, that with a total public debt level of 721 billion Ghana cedis, which President Mahama was talking about, which is 72% of GDP, our record on debt sustainability is better compared with President Mahama's debt to GDP ratio of 73.1% by the end of 2016 when he left office. This, therefore, does not give the president a good standing to teach us lessons on debts. The energy sector debt at the beginning of 2017 stood at $2.5 billion. According to the Ghana Energy Sector Recovery Program, the energy sector was badly managed by President Mahama to the extent that the debts could reach $12 billion in 5 years if nothing was done about it. President Akufo-Addo ensured that this did not happen, and we ended our administration with $2.4 billion debts in the energy sector, less than the $2.5 billion we inherited from President Mahama in 2016, and notwithstanding the fact that President Akufo-Addo kept the lights on. The NPP administration kept the lights on by spending $6.2 billion in the process over 7 years. with 2024 expenditure on energy alone standing at $1.4 billion. It is important to state also that the bulk of the ECG debts the President referenced in his address came from excess capacity payments because of take-or-pay energy contracts signed by President Mahama. These payments could not be reflected in electricity tariffs because PURC allows for only the cost of energy consumed to be in tariffs and not the cost of contracted energy. This is what resulted in the debts. And so we ask, as we often do, now who caused them? President Mahama should have been the last to come talking about energy sector debts when the bulk of the debts were caused by deals that he signed in his previous administration. Even with these debts from President Mahama's energy deals, Nana Akufo-Addo kept the lights on. We expect the president to do the same. Keep the lights on, Mr. President. The president refers to some 55 stalled projects funded from external resources because of non-disbursement of $2.9 billion, pales in the shadow of the savings we have made for Ghana, which he's going to be a beneficiary of anyway. The consequent savings Ghana is making through the rescheduling of the debt service in respect of this project shows that our debt management strategy was masterstroke. The reason the president must applaud us rather than doing politics with it. We wish to state, without any equivocation, that unlike the NDC, the NPP administration borrowed to develop our country. By the end of our administration, we increased the size of GDP by $20 billion and created 2.3 million jobs in 8 years, the highest job creation of any government since independence. This contrasts with the previous Mahama administration, which supervised a contraction in GDP by $10 billion between 2013 and 2016. The president's assurances to bondholders about his commitment to honor matured coupons is good. That is what this government must do to continue to increase investor confidence in the economy. However, to present this as a new policy or measure is to play mischief. The honoring of the matured coupon payment of 6 billion Ghana cedis in cash and 3.4 billion Ghana cedis in kind due in February 2025 to all domestic debt exchange program bondholders, which President Mahama's government did, was the fourth of these payments. The previous three payments honored under the NPP administration. So it is not new. I was even shocked because when we did the payment, the three payment, it was the Ministry of Finance which issued statements. I was shocked that for the fourth payment, the president himself issued a statement as if to say that this is an achievement. This is the first time this is happening. I was very shocked. And I was wondering how the professionals at the finance ministry who usually do this were feeling. I was wondering. Such professionals have been have been asked to shut up for the president to do that job. In fact, the previous NPP government honored these three previous payments to domestic bondholders between August 2023 and December 2024, totaling 17.25 billion Ghana cedis in cash and 9.77 billion Ghana cedis in kind, based on the prescribed payment terms. Also, individuals who did not tender their bonds were paid coupons amounting to 515 million Ghana cedis at various times between 2023 and 2024, in line with the MOU signed between the government and the coalition of individual bondholders. And we did these payments without all the noise about sinking fund. The breakdown of the payments were as follows. First payment, August 2023, total payment of 8.55 billion Ghana cedis. Second payment in February 2024, total payments of 9.11 billion Ghana cedis. And the third payment, August 2024, total payments of 9.35 billion Ghana cedis. Energy sector. The government's handling of the power situation has increased uncertainty about economic growth prospects this year. The promises by the president in his address to the nation to fix the current Dumsor cannot be different from those he made during the 4 years of Dumsor endured by Ghanaians between the end of 2011 and 2016. Not even the creation of a new Ministry of Power by him would save the nation from the excruciating effects of Dumsor, resulting in the dismissal of then Minister for Power in January 2015. Even in 2016, there were major power interruptions which were blamed on maintenance and what was described as localized faults, a new term for PR stunt intended to cover up Dumsor, as the government was avoiding issuing load shedding timetable despite public demands for it because the general elections were close. Yet, the Ghanaian people knew Dumsor had not ended because they lived with it and continued to suffer from it. Mr. President, you did not fix Dumsor as you claimed in your address.
What?
Your record on Dumsor is abysmal, unlike your predecessor, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, who kept the lights on.
Yeah.
As we are back to Dumsor in another Mahama term, Ghanaians remember with fear and anxiety the potential devastation this could cause for them and their businesses, especially small businesses like hair salons, welders, dressmakers, and many more who earn their daily bread from these vocations. Many people and businesses have already felt the pinch and the pain of living with the current Dumsor. We have also seen the return of electric generating sets in shops, in clinics, and at social events. Mr. President, this is the true state of our nation and not what you presented to Parliament. To ameliorate the impact of these erratic power challenges, we, the mighty minority, call on the government to publish a load shedding timetable today to help people and businesses plan effectively to offset some of the losses the economy is currently suffering from. On the petroleum sector, the record will show that production of crude oil has declined because President Mahama signed contracts with 13 companies, most of which, in fact, all of which, had no technical or financial capacity to undertake oil activity. However, President Akufo-Addo administration rather introduced measures for aggressive reserve replacement on assumption of office in 2017. As a result of these measures, between 2018 and 2022, 7 discoveries of crude oil were made. Ladies and gentlemen, as industry watchers know, the COVID-19 pandemic slowed down operations across the oil industry in the world, which affected the appraisal of these discoveries in Ghana. To incentivize these companies, the then government, the Akufo-Addo government, took the decision to restore their lost time to them. Several amendments were also made to the existing frameworks to provide further incentives to the industry. The NPP government could therefore not be accused of creating a hostile business climate and excessive political interference in the words of President Mahama. The NPP administration also added to crude oil production with the coming on stream of Jubilee Southeast in September 2023, which added 30,000 barrels of oil per day to production from the Jubilee field, thereby taking production from the field to 100,000 barrels of oil per day. Ladies and gentlemen, we are alarmed at the risk of these power challenges, reversing the economic turnaround in Ghana, as evidenced by the resurgent economic growth achieved last year. The dangers to economic growth are very visible for us to see. There is no reliable power supply now. Investors are being turned away by a government that is baselessly painting a bad picture of its own economy. And contractors are not being paid, despite the 68 billion Ghana cedis approved by Parliament for the government to spend in the first quarter of the year. And notwithstanding the significant amount of revenue at their disposal to meet these spending requirements, including, for example, the over 5 billion Ghana cedis buffer left for them, the 8.7 billion Ghana cedis collected by Ghana Revenue Authority for January 2025 alone, and about 67 billion Ghana cedis borrowed in less than 2 months. Many government projects have halted as a result, and the resultant job losses by young Ghanaians is very painful and unfortunate. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, the prospects for growth, economic growth, in this first quarter of 2025 remain weak and sluggish, and the government must change its economic management strategy as soon as possible. The Mahama administration made a lot of political gains by highlighting the plight of young Ghanaians who were yet to get jobs after over 2 million others had gotten jobs in the 8 years of the NPP administration. They promised 2 more people for each job under the 24-hour economy program. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now a notorious fact that to create vacancies for the purpose of employing NDC youth, the Mahama administration has sacked thousands of young Ghanaians who had been properly employed, by the previous administration. The termination of the jobs of young Ghanaians, which has become synonymous with Mr. President Mahama, who we now prefer to call Terminator 1, is a sign of what is yet to come. Sacking people from employment and replacing them later with others does not amount to job creation. What the people of Ghana want are new jobs for those yet to be employed. President Mahama knows that the programs he outlined in his statement, Nkoko, Nkitinkiti, and the rest, cannot create sustainable jobs for the Ghanaian youth. Hence, the resort to termination of existing jobs for future replacement to shore up his job numbers. This is after President Mahama had argued, sadly, in 2016, that it was legitimate for an outgoing administration to recruit and sign deals up until the midnight of January 7 the following year, when its term expires. Not only are these double standards worrying, but the dismissals will no doubt worsen the unemployment situation which he promised to fix. The thousands who have been dismissed have been condemned to suffering and hardship. The fight against Galamsey has been difficult, no doubt. The President Mills struggled with it. President Mahama struggled with it in his first term. And despite the best of efforts, President Akufo-Addo also struggled with it. After having made so much propaganda about it, while in opposition, key NDC figures appearing before Parliament's Appointments Committee could not substantiate any of the propaganda allegations of the NPP being complicit in the Galamsey phenomenon. In contrast, media networks are now reporting that weeks after the election, known NDC kingpins in the Ashanti region have invaded some forests and commenced Galamsey activities there. Also in the western region and the eastern region. And western north, all over. The president is quiet, is silent on all this. On the 19th day of January 2025 edition of the Ghanaian Daily Graphic, it was reported that illegal miners numbering about 60 breached the Anglo Gold Ashanti Mine security fence and intruded at Cote D. The aim of the illegal miners was to enter the deep decline. The decision to enter the deep decline was because of a promise made to these illegal miners by the leadership of the NDC during the campaign. The promise was to assist them to illegally mine in areas which had been legally acquired by the Anglo Gold Company. Also, the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, speaking to Parliament on February 19, 2025, raised a very disturbing issue of insecurity, leading to an alarming rate of illegal mining activities within the nation's forest reserves. 9 out of the 44 forest reserves have been completely taken by illegal mining thugs with impunity. Our security agents and the Forestry Commission no longer have access to these forest reserves. We wish to ask, since when thugs involved in illegal mining became more powerful than our well-trained security agents. This is the true state of the fight against galamsey, for which reason the president's address was scanty on any real steps to tackle the canker. Infrastructure development. The president conveniently omitted from his address the strides made in the housing sector under the immediate past administration. This included the completion of some of the stalled projects inherited in 2017, like the Asokori Mampong housing project, resumption of works on the Adenta SHC estates, and the selection of the private partner to commence work on the completion of the Saglime project. Additionally, 1,000 homes were delivered to the security services, 1,000 homes delivered by the TDC, and nearly another 1,000 homes by the State Housing Company. The administration also set up the National Home Ownership Fund that has delivered about 500 homes so far. The president failed to mention that the Ministry of Finance under President Akufo-Addo gave approval to GIF to set up a GIF housing sub-fund to receive funding for bankable housing projects, while the Ministry of Housing rolled out a PPP framework to stimulate housing. These strides made in the housing sector marked an unprecedented change in the approach to resolving the housing deficit in Ghana. Instead of seeking to lambast the outgone administration, credit should rather be given to it, followed by a commitment to build on it. The Ghana Priority Health Infrastructure Project, referred to as Agenda 111, was to design, construct, and equip 111 hospitals across the country. The need for the construction of hospitals became essential after Ghana recorded its first case of COVID-19 on 12 March 2020. In one of his regular addresses to the nation, where he detailed the government's measures to contain the spread of the virus, His Excellency, President Akufo-Addo, bemoaned the lack of hospitals in some 88 districts and 6 newly created regions of the country, and promised swift government investment in new hospitals, not only to address the urgent need to contain the spread of the virus in those districts and regions, but also to correct the anomaly in the distribution of health infrastructure across the country. The initial hospitals comprise of 101 district hospitals, 7 regional hospitals, 2 regional psychiatric hospitals, and 1 national psychiatric hospital in Accra. The program was, however, revised to include 3 district hospitals, thus expanding to cover 114 sites. As at 31st December 2024, progress on completion of civil works were 37 sites achieved 70% completion and above, 28 sites achieved between 50 and 70% completion, and 36 sites achieved below 50% completion. These district hospitals, 3 district hospitals, and this is important because some people have gone out there to say only 1 was completed. 3 district hospitals achieved practical completion, equipped and commissioned on 5th December 2024. And they are Achima Konwuma Municipal Hospital at Trede, Konwuma Municipal Hospital at Trede, the Oforikrom Municipal Hospital at Kokoben, and Ahanta West Municipal Hospital at Bokro. We also had dedicated sources of funding. Some have said that we were just doing it in an ad hoc manner. We had dedicated sources of funding from the government annual budgetary allocation and the CAPEX component of the annual budget funding amount from oil revenues. Total outstanding amount to complete all these district hospitals and the zonal psychiatric hospitals as at 31st December 2024 was $1.3 billion. In his haste to misinform the Ghanaian people, the president told a group of clergymen who visited him in his office that he needed $1.7 billion to complete the Agenda 111 projects. In his address to the nation last week, he put the amount at 22 billion Ghana cedis, and that is $1.4 billion, at 15.5 cedis to $1. So, Mr. President, which is the correct amount? We have taken note of the new government's plan to abandon these projects by proposing to relaunch the ABFA from oil revenues used in financing these projects to other projects. This is unacceptable, Mr. President. And this certainly will lead to significant cost overruns, which will later come to hurt our country. The NDC has resorted to a deliberate distortion of road sector data as a way of undermining the work the NPP administration has done. When it is reported that between January 2017 and June 2024, the NPP successfully undertook works covering a total length of 13,624 kilometers, the NDC mischievously reports it as a claim of some 13,000 kilometers of brand new roads. We have always made it clear that this figure represents the total kilometers of roads we worked on, including construction of brand new, reconstruction of dilapidated roads, rehabilitation of bad roads, and upgrades of roads in poor condition. This is a major achievement when compared to the NDC's paltry 4,636 kilometers delivered by the Atta Mills and Mahama administration over the entire 8 years in office, covering the same scope of works. So we are talking about 13,624 kilometers versus 4,636 kilometers. And yet they say we criminally mismanaged the economy. Ladies and gentlemen, between 2019 and 2016, the Atta Mills and Mahama administration managed to complete only 5 interchanges. And I mean just 5 in 8 years. Contrast this with the 9 interchanges delivered under the Akufo-Addo-Bawumia administration. Additionally, the NPP started works on at least 13 other interchanges. In fact, our performance in the road sector has been so impressive that the World Bank Country Director stated on 7th August 2024 that in terms of road density, kilometers of road per 100 square kilometer land, Ghana has road access that exceed the regional average. 32.8 kilometers per 100 square kilometers in Ghana versus 17 kilometers regional average in Africa. That is nearly double the regional average. Ghana is also above the regional average in terms of rural accessibility. In Ghana, 63% of the population lives within 2 kilometers of all weather routes, as compared to only 47% in the Africa region. We must celebrate our achievements, ladies and gentlemen, irrespective of who is doing it. We must celebrate our achievement, irrespective of who is doing it. If it is Nana Akufo-Addo who did it, let's celebrate. Yes. If Mahama did it, let's celebrate. But we must celebrate our achievements as a country. Ghanaians can judge for themselves when it comes to roads and infrastructure. The record is clear. Our vision, our delivery, and our impact far surpass anything our predecessors achieved. Education. And we have the education minister, former education minister here. Throughout the president's address, the president did well to explain to the nation his vision for education, his commitment to continue the implementation of free senior high school is commendable. We also commend him for his commitment to continue President Akufo-Addo's drive to boost the tertiary gross enrollment ratio. Besides this, however, the vision espoused by President Mahama is uninspiring, exposing a profound education best practice and knowledge gap. Clearly, the president's speech lacked coherence and did not articulate clearly the role of education in the transformation of Ghana. Many of the initiatives announced are already being implemented with a high degree of success under the previous regime. Consequently, a number of reforms have taken place across all levels of education in Ghana, including tackling the learning crisis in the early years of education through the implementation of differentiated learning approach. In the face of COVID-19, teachers and other education workers came together and saved our nation from what could have been catastrophic learning losses. By working together, our primary two literacy jumped from 2% in 2015 to 38% in 2022. To equip learners with 21st century skills at the secondary level, the Ministry of Education, under Akufo-Addo's administration, had a total overhaul of the country's secondary education curriculum with a focus on improving national values, promoting STEM education, and preparing learners for the field of work. To make sure that our students meet global standards and participate in the fast growth of digitalization, advancing STEM education for Ghana's transformation was a key focus in our government. Thus, 13 STEM schools have been built across the nation. These include Awoso STEM Senior High School, Huasi STEM High, East Legon STEM Academy, Pasinpe STEM SHS, Bosonchi STEM and Girls HSS, and so on. In addition to that, over 20 STEM centers have been built in existing schools across the country. Contrary to the assertion by the president that the Ghanaian education system is outmoded, we have rather enhanced our education system during the last few years. An education system that has introduced courses like biomedical sciences, engineering, aviation, manufacturing engineering, robotics, and so on. We have also built science and engineering labs across the country. This system of education cannot be described as outmoded. It cannot be described as outmoded. Robotics. As we speak, high school students are receiving tablets to facilitate technology integration to enhance teaching and learning under the Ghana Smart Schools project introduced to empower students on a global scale. Here we are talking about smart schools. That cannot be outmoded. Whilst His Excellency, the President, has outlined his vision for education and skills development, it is imperative to acknowledge the substantial progress made under the previous administration in transforming technical and vocational education and training in Ghana. In 2017, the TVET sector was uncoordinated, and some 17 ministries were engaged in some form of TVET regulation and delivery, and therefore made coordination across the landscape quite challenging, since each of the TVET institutions were taking direct instruction from their ministries and legislations. Almost all the workshops in the TVET institutions were filled with obsolete tools and equipment, and outdated curricula as well. The sector was not responsive to the needs of industry. The linkage between training providers and industry was very weak, which caused mismatches in the demand and supply. The Akufo-Addo-led government implemented bold reforms backed by significant investments to revamp TVET, ensuring it becomes a viable pathway for skills acquisition, entrepreneurship, and employment creation. Some of the key interventions and accomplishments in the sector include the establishment of the Commission for TVET and the Ghana TVET Service, introduction of free TVET into the free senior high school policy, leading to a massive jump in 3-year enrollment from 41,696 students in 2016 to over 172,473 students in 2024. Construction of 4 new TVET centers of excellence, rehabilitation and equipping of tertiary and pre-tertiary TVET institutions, implementation of competency-based training, establishment of sector skills bodies, among others. We have laid a very solid foundation for TVET transformation in Ghana. The focus should now be on consolidating these gains rather than presenting an inaccurate narrative that disregards these achievements. The future of TVET in Ghana depends on building upon those robust interventions to further enhance skills development and economic growth based on our proposed TVET policy that focuses on just transition, governance, access, quality, sustainable and efficient financing, research and innovation, competency-based training, and environmental sustainability. A little on the judiciary. The president complained about politicization of the judiciary and the need to make it independent. This is very unfortunate. This is a myth on their mind, their own minds, that they are pushing to the Ghanaian people to discredit the only institution that is not formed by political parties. The power to appoint lower court, district, and circuit court judges is in the Chief Justice, subject to the approval of the President under Article 148 of the 1992 Constitution. No political person has power to start the process. If the President doesn't approve, all he can say is no. What evidence then has the President got to portray that our judiciary has been politicized? Pursuant to Article 144 of the Constitution, superior court judges are not appointed by the President alone. His choices must be approved by the Judicial Council and by the Council of State. Any refusal by any of these bodies means the President's nominee will not become a judge or be promoted. By Article 153 of the Constitution, the Judicial Council is made up of 14 constituencies. The President contributes in the selection of the Attorney General and 4 non-lawyers to the Council. How is the President suggesting that these non-lawyers that he sends can politicize independent thinking of the remaining majority on the Council? Judges are professionals who must serve our democracy free of insinuation that intimidate them, as if they don't toe a political line, they will not be appointed to the next level. It is such utterances by politicians that can affect the ability of judges to serve the country independently. If that is what he wants to achieve, then it is unfortunate, really unfortunate. After all, he kept saying that his party will look through their ranks and encourage them to become judges to serve the interests of his party. Therefore, in our view, the President's statement about politicization of the judiciary is only an expression of his own agenda, which he kept touting before the elections, if we recall.
That's true.
Insecurity. Ghana has been ranked the second safest destination in Africa by Alteza Travel, a global tourism firm. According to their 2025 tourism report, Ghana boasts a remarkably low crime rate, surpassing even countries like Canada, Greece, and Australia in terms of safety. Under President Akufo-Addo, a deliberate policy and planning had been implemented to enhance Ghana's peace and security. The crime rate in the country, for instance, had reduced significantly following the increase in police visibility. The visibility has brought discipline on the roads and made communities safer. However, in a rather contrasting and worrying view, following the election of President Mahama in the 2024 general elections, several acts of lawlessness and violence have erupted in the country, leading to the arrest of over 100 people suspected to be supporters of the ruling party. And this is according to BBC report, December 11, 2024. Supporters of the newly elected president, who won jobs, have allegedly attacked some state institutions, looted property, and engaged in disturbances that have left some police and military personnel injured. The president was silent about all this. How can you talk about the state of the nation without talking about the spate of violence and lawlessness that we are all witnesses to over the last 2 months? Ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you a few instances of this violence. At Ayanswano, angry youth set the Electoral Commission office ablaze. The standoff at the Ghana Gas headquarters, we all remember, where security forces fired warning shots to disperse a crowd of protesters belonging to the NDC. Imam Obi, hooded individual, parading through the streets on vehicles and motorbikes, disturbing everybody's peace, and nobody said anything to them. In Obuasi, civilians and party members were in direct showdown with military officers. Several shooting incidents led to 4 dead and many injured. In Damongo, frustrated youth stormed the Damongo Municipal Coalition Center and set the EC office ablaze. 1 person died and the office was burnt down. 8 suspects were also arrested for attacking the Metro Mass Transit workshop in Sunyani, Bono region. Suspects unlawfully entered the workshop premises and attacked and threatened workers, forcing them to flee. A wave of violence swept through Ejura police station as angry Zongo youth attacked a local police station, freeing suspects on remand and setting the police station on fire. The lifeless body of a final year biological sciences student of Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology was discovered near the KNUST Disability and Rehabilitation Center. The Council of State elections in the Ashanti region descended into chaos as a group of unidentified thugs stormed the election center, disrupting the sorting and counting of ballots. In Bonturugu Yunyo, chieftaincy clash have led to 4 people losing their lives. 4 students were arrested at Wager Divisional Police Command after a clash ensued between some students of Christian Methodist Senior High School and local youth over a missing mobile phone at the school premises at Aplako. 5 students sustained severe injuries, with several others suffering minor wounds after violence erupted during a peace ceremony between students of Boku Senior High School and Boku Technical Institute. 20 students from Salaga Senior High School in the East Gonja municipality of the Savannah region have been arrested following a violent clash that left 1 person with multiple stab wounds. It is sad, ladies and gentlemen, to mention that because of the insecurity in our country, the Electoral Commission has not been able to conclude Ablekuma parliamentary election declaration. This certainly is a dark spot in our democratic dispensation, given that the people of Ablekuma North are currently not having a representative in parliament. Insecurity in the Boku area continues to heighten in recent times, with a woman and her 2 children being tragically murdered in their home by gunmen on February 9, 2025. Again, on February 25, 2025, a 13-year-old boy was killed in the same township. The indiscriminate killing of the indigents of Waliwali and its environs is getting out of hand, and the imposition of curfew in the area is making it difficult for our Muslim brothers and sisters to wake up at dawn to eat and start their fasting. Government needs to decouple politics from security and ensure that every Ghanaian is protected. Mr. President, the security situation in our country is indeed very worrying. As you refuse to act decisively, the security agencies have become powerless, and this continues to embolden thugs of your party who visit mayhem on innocent Ghanaians daily. Sadly, the homes of some former public servants have been raided in Rambo style. That can only be akin to what happens in a military coup d'etat. For many Ghanaians, this is reminding them of the dark days of our nation's history. The president must act, and indeed, action is required now. Rather strangely, whilst officials of the NPP administration are being harassed and investigated, former officials of the NDC government who were on judicial trial have been cleared of all criminal charges against them, and in some cases have been rewarded with juicy appointments, like the current governor of the Bank of Ghana. Yes. Today, we are being told that crime has party colors, and our country has been turned into an animal farm, where 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, we, the mighty minority, are ready to do our work. We are ready to do our work to provide truthful information to the Ghanaian people on the affairs of our nation, especially as the government is holding a national economic dialogue, which is intended to whitewash the unfounded and baseless claims of the mismanagement of our economy under the SWAL NPP administration. That is what they are doing there. They are even scaring the people of Ghana further by putting out unaudited outstanding claims on government. And we will expose this mischief at the right time.
Yes.
We believe that these unholy moves by the NDC are intended to buy time to cover for its incompetence in managing the economy and to establish the basis for increasing taxes and introducing new taxes in the 2025 budget statement, even as they are promising to scrap e-levy, COVID levy, and others. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask you, does it make sense to scrap e-levy and betting tax and replace them with new taxes on the telecommunication industry? They are bringing back VAT on telecommunication. They are increasing the growth and sustainability levy on the mining industry. And they are bringing back VAT on the financial services and real estate industries.
Wow. Wait and see.
All these taxes will be passed on to customers, to the Ghanaian people. The people of Ghana should wait for the deception of the NDC government when they present the 2025 budget.
Sakawa.
Taxes galore. Sakawa. This is how they intend to tax Ghanaians to collect their target of 200 billion Ghana cedis in tax revenues this year. This NDC government accused us, the NPP administration, of overtaxing the people of Ghana, because by the end of 2024, the NPP administration collected 152.9 billion Ghana cedis, and that was 17% tax to GDP ratio, taking it from President Mohammed's 13% in 2016. How do you then turn around to expect to collect 200 billion Ghana cedis in an economy you call a broken economy? Ladies and gentlemen, we, the mighty minority, will join the people of Ghana to resist any attempt to smuggle in new taxes or increase existing taxes. We owe it a duty to hold the government accountable for their promises to the people of Ghana. We can only accommodate scrapping of taxes. We cannot accept new taxes or increase in taxes. Ladies and gentlemen, as a country, we have come a long way, working closely with our key stakeholders, including the IMF, World Bank, the African Development Bank, our bilateral partners, domestic and international investors, and more importantly, the Ghanaian people, who have sacrificed so much to see us get this far. We can assure you all that our partners and most of the people of Ghana are not happy because the president used his State of the Nation address, in fact, the false State of the Nation address, to reverse the gains made, especially towards building confidence with investors. The president has painted the picture of a country that has been economically mismanaged, when in fact, we have turned the corner from what we have all come to know was the worst economic crisis in Ghana following an unprecedented global crisis between 2020 and 2022. Even when they were confronted with a domestic challenge in the form of doomsday, they ran to the IMF to save the economy. How much more a crisis that plagued the entire world, including our country, and in no mean a proportion. What the president has done is like putting a gun on one's head and pulling the trigger. Investors had felt the hope of a resurging economy in Ghana, and were looking forward to the new things the president was bringing to consolidate the gains. The president has effectively told them to go away because the economy is in crisis, contrary to the evidence. The cost of living crisis is a global problem. It's a global problem, and we all know that. But that cannot be used to degrade the entire economy in the face of overwhelming data pointing to the contrary. And in addressing the cost of living crisis, the president himself walked or drove himself to a meeting with leaders of the labor union to assure them he was on top of his job, only to offer them 10% increase in the base pay. When his predecessor, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, without this drama, offered them 23% from January to June and 25% from July to December 2024 in an economy that is criminally mismanaged in the words of President Mahama. He also touted his economic struggle around the 24-hour economy to deliver jobs to the youth. However, the only area he mentioned was in the processing of passports, not even the incentives to industries that will create sustainable jobs. Does the president think that many Ghanaians will want to run out of the country because they know his poor record on job creation and are preparing to run out of the country as a result of which they need 24-hour issuance of passports? Ladies and gentlemen, let no one be surprised at the blame game by His Excellency the President. It is not new. This is what the President said about the late Professor John Evans Atemius in his last State of the Nation delivered on January 5th, 2027, when he left office from his previous government. 2017, January 5th, 2017, in which he blamed the poor performance of their first 4 years, during which he served as Vice President. And I quote, Mr. Speaker, we inherited in 2013 an economy that was running a high deficit with increasing inflation and interest rates. Mr. Speaker, we inherited in 2013 an economy that was running a high deficit with increasing inflation and interest rates. It was also characterized by a rapidly depreciating currency. This unstable macro environment created an unfavorable investment environment for both indigenous and foreign capital, as well as investors. Our forum at Senchi was an attempt to forge a consensus for a homegrown fiscal consolidation program. The Senchi outcome eventually became the basis for the IMF Extended Credit Facility program we are implementing. Unquote. This is President Mohammed's statement about the government he served as Vice President. So, ladies and gentlemen, it appears we are back there. We are back there with another round of blame game. And don't forget, and another national economic dialogue. And don't forget, with the same Dadanua, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, who promises to create jobs and begin by firing those who have jobs. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow citizens, this is the true state of the nation, which the mighty minority has presented to the Ghanaian people. Bless our nation and make her great and strong. And thank you very much, fellow citizens.